They say, do not rejoice yet until it is over. This is the fate of Ada, Chisum, and Nosy after they ignored their wicked uncle. If you have not watched parts 1, 2, and 3, check the first comment or the video description, and please tell me where you're watching from. Uncle Dominic sat hunched in the shadow of his leaking thatched hut at the edge of Umuaku village, coughing violently into a threadbare cloth. The man who once commanded a mansion and chased his late brother's daughters into the streets now looked like a ghost of himself. His back was bent, his clothes torn and reeking of damp sweat and hopelessness, and his food came only when a kind neighbor remembered he still existed. The villagers avoided him like a curse. Mothers warned their children, "Do not go near Dominic's hut. He brought shame to his lineage." He was no longer welcome at village meetings, not even at burials or festivals. His kinsmen, ashamed of his wickedness, had excommunicated him, and worst of all, no one dared to speak his name unless in scorn or pity. It was a cruel fate, but one he earned. Every day he heard whispers of the girl's achievements. Ada, now a renowned nurse in London, had just opened a clinic in Enugu to provide free healthcare for widows and orphans. Chisum's fashion brand had gone global. Her designs were being worn by TV stars and dignitaries. Nosy, the youngest, had become a gospel singer with millions of streams and was touring cities across Nigeria. Their names echoed from every radio station and every market square like a trumpet of judgment. He couldn't escape it. Each time he heard, his heart twisted. What haunted him the most was not just their success, but their silence. They had not once mentioned his name in public. They had not come to mock him. They had simply moved on. Worse still, when each of the girls got married, one after another, the entire village knew, but he didn't receive a single invitation, not even a mention. He first heard of Ada's wedding from Mama Nkechi, who returned from the city. "And Dominic, you should have seen the wedding. Ha! Ada's husband is a doctor like her. You should have seen the convoy, 24 cars, and they even flew to Dubai for honeymoon." Chisum's came next, a glamorous affair that made the front page of Niger Style magazine. And Nosy, the smallest of them all? She married a tech entrepreneur who built her a recording studio as a wedding gift. At each wedding, he sat alone in his hut, listening to the faint echoes of music and fireworks from someone's transistor radio. No one came to call him. No one sent him a souvenir. The same girls he had thrown out like stray dogs now had the entire village at their feet. One evening, Dominic staggered out of his hut and wandered to the village square. He saw a group of young boys laughing and imitating Nosy's song. "She's now richer than the governor," one boy boasted. Another added, "And to think she once slept on the floor of Auntie Foma's one-room house." Dominic turned back slowly, his heart heavy, his eyes wet. Inside his hut that night, he stared at the smoke-stained ceiling and whispered to no one, "It should have been me in that mansion. That house was mine. They stole it." But deep down, he knew the truth. He had stolen their childhood. He had tried to bury their dreams. He had mocked them when they cried and shut the door on them after their father's burial. He never imagined they would survive, let alone soar. Now, all he had was an old, rusted kettle, torn mats, and his bitter memories. But something inside him had begun to twist. A voice, low and poisonous, began to whisper, "They forgot you. They shamed you. And yet, you are still breathing. Do something." That night, Dominic tossed and turned. The darkness in his mind deepened. The spirit of regret had done his job. Now envy had taken his place. He clenched his teeth and whispered aloud, "If I can't rise, then let them fall." And that was the beginning of a dangerous thought. one that would push him to take a path so dark it would drag him beyond the point of return. The next morning, long before the village rooster crowed, Uncle Dominic stood at the edge of the dense forest path leading to Umuagu, a village whispered to harbor the old ways, witches, seers, and secret shrines. His slippers were worn to the heel, his walking stick trembled in his grip, and his breath came in dry wheezes. But his mind was set. He had not told a soul. He didn't need to. His decision was between himself and the spirits that haunted his bitter heart. The road was thick with silence. Twigs snapped under his feet as he made his way deeper into the woods. Owls hooted from trees above, and the rustle of unseen animals trailed him like ghosts. Still, he walked, because all he could see, behind his tired eyes, were the images of Ada, Chisum, and Nosi, radiant in white gowns, standing in the same compound he once owned. How dare they? How dare those girls shine after all he did to destroy them? After nearly 2 hours, he arrived at a crooked compound hidden beneath tall palm trees. The gates were made from bones tied together with palm fronds, and an eerie red cloth fluttered above the entrance. Dominic hesitated for a moment, but the darkness within him pushed him forward. A hunched old woman sat at the threshold, her skin dry and wrinkled like old bark. She had no teeth, but her smile sent chills through his spine. "You no reach," she croaked. "Dem den tell me say you dey come." Dominic blinked. "You know me?" The woman laughed. "I no need know you. I know your heart. It dey smell revenge." She turned and beckoned. "Follow me." Inside, the air was thick with smoke and strange herbs. Strange symbols were drawn across the mud walls in chalk and charcoal. Clay pots bubbled with dark mixtures, and the head of a goat hung above the doorway, flies buzzing around it. Dominic cleared his throat. "I want them to suffer." "Which dem?" the woman asked, crouching near a fire. "My nieces, Ada, Chisum, Nosi. I want their joy to dry up, their light to dim. Let everything they touch turn to pain." The old woman didn't flinch. She picked up a wooden bowl and began to stir something dark and sticky. "You be strong man for your time, but dem girls, dem carry favor way past ordinary. Their blood carry light. It go cost you plenty." Dominic nodded. "Anything. I'm ready to pay." The woman's eyes gleamed. "Even your own peace?" He hesitated. She leaned forward. "You no fit pluck star from sky without paying with your own breath." Dominic clenched his fists. "I said I'm ready." She grinned and tossed black powder into the flames. It flared green, then red, then died into smoke. She brought out 3 white dolls, each marked with a symbol and wrapped in pieces of lace cloth. "Dese be they spirits," she whispered. "We gon' tie they path. We gon' scatter they dreams. But once I begin, you no fit turn back. Your soul go be the road where the affliction go follow." Dominic took a shaky breath and nodded. With chants rising from her cracked lips, the old woman dipped the dolls in blood and smeared ash over them. One by one, she bound their eyes with thread, tied their hands, and pushed pins into their hearts. Then she turned to Dominic. "It is done. Go home and watch. But remember, every time they cry, your bones go feel the pain. That is your price." Dominic left in silence, his heart pounding not with fear, but with twisted satisfaction. Back in his hut that night, thunder cracked across the sky. Rain poured like the heavens were trying to wash away something evil. Dominic sat in the dark, staring at the wall. And then it began. A sudden wind blew open his window. His lantern shattered without warning, and a distant voice echoed in the rain, like a girl's cry, soft and haunting. He smiled. The next morning, as Ada prepared to speak at a medical conference in Abuja, her voice suddenly failed. No sound came out of her mouth. Chisholm woke up to find all her fabrics soaked in black oil. Every single design she had prepared for her international runway was ruined. And Nosy? Just as she stepped on stage at her concert in Port Harcourt, the lights cut. Her microphone sparked. Panic filled the venue. A crew member collapsed. It was chaos. Each of them paused, stunned, confused, and shaken. But this was just the beginning. The winds in Suka had never blown as fiercely as they did that week. The villagers whispered. Birds stopped singing. Dogs howled without cause. Even the elders who normally sat under the big mango tree refused to gather. Something wasn't right. The girls, Ada, Chisholm, and Nosy, had gone quiet. And those who knew their story sensed that something unnatural was beginning to circle them. Ada hadn't left her apartment in Abuja for 3 days. She sat by her bed, her stethoscope abandoned, the papers from the conference scattered on the floor. Her voice had still not returned. She had visited 3 hospitals, spoken to specialists, even done blood work. All results came back normal. Yet she could not utter a single word. Her phone rang. It was Chisholm. Ada, Chisholm's voice trembled through the speaker. My store caught fire. Everything is gone. Ada gasped silently, clutching the phone tighter. I don't know what happened. I went out to get thread and came back to smoke and flames. The fire service said it was electrical, but there was no light that morning. Ada shook her head and tried to whisper a prayer, but not even a breath came out. Later that night, Nosy called. She had returned from her concert in Port Harcourt, traumatized. I was almost electrocuted, Ada, she cried. The light sparked out of nowhere. The stage manager collapsed. I haven't been able to sleep. I'm scared. Ada tried to speak, but only silence answered. So she texted, We need to go home. Back to Nsukka. Something is wrong. 2 days later, all 3 sisters sat in Aunt Ifoma's living room. The air was heavy. Their aunt paced the floor, tying and retying her headscarf, her face contorted with fear. This is not ordinary, she finally said. Something is pursuing you girls. This is spiritual. I've had dreams, terrible ones. Last night, I saw your uncle, Dominic, standing barefoot in a river, throwing stones at your shadows. Each stone made you scream. The room went cold. Auntie, do you think he's behind this? Chisholm passed quietly. I know he is, Ifoma whispered. I warned you girls after the wedding. That man carries bitterness like poison. When you refused to press charges or disgrace him, I knew he wouldn't let go. Ada wrote in her journal and passed it to them. Then we must fight back, not with bitterness, but with truth and God. We didn't come this far to lose. They prayed through the night. No food, no distractions, just scriptures, songs, and weeping. At midnight, as they cried out for help, the candles flickered wildly. Nosy stopped singing. She looked toward the window. A strange shadow passed outside. Did anyone see that? She whispered. Chisholm jumped up and bolted the door. Suddenly, Ada clutched her throat. Her hands trembled. She tried again to speak, and this time a whisper came out. He's watching. They stared at her. Her voice, hoarse and cracked, had returned. What did you say? Aunt Ifoma asked. Ada looked toward the window, tears in her eyes. Uncle Dominic, he's watching us, through something, or someone. I could feel it. The next morning, Aunt Ifeoma left early and traveled to a neighboring village, seeking an elderly woman known as Mama Ncheta, a prayerful prophetess who once helped the community many years ago. Mama Ncheta listened patiently and closed her eyes. The girls are under a curse sent from the blood of the bitter. But his evil is borrowed. It does not come from him. It comes from something he paid dearly for. What can we do? Aunt Ifeoma asked. You must break it with truth. Find the source. Return what was taken. Aunt Ifeoma frowned. Return? Mama Nchetsa leaned in. There is something the girls own that he still hides, something tied to their father. When you recover it and lay it before the altar, his spell will shatter. Back in the sukkah, Ada sat alone outside, her voice fully restored, humming softly. She stared up at the sky. We won't run anymore, she said. We were never the victims. We are the light. That night, for the first time since the curse began, Uncle Dominic woke up screaming. His room was flooded with rats, hundreds of them, biting, scratching, crawling over him. He fought them off, flailing and crying, only to find himself alone. No rats, no blood, just silence. He sat up, drenched in sweat, breathing heavily. The old woman's voice echoed in his head. Every time they cry, your bones go feel the pain. And for the first time, Dominic felt fear, real fear. Because deep inside, something told him the girls were coming. Uncle Dominic could no longer sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, the same nightmare returned. Ada stood at the edge of a river, her eyes glowing like fire. Behind her were Chisam and Nosi, dressed in white, singing a song that pierced his ears like thunder. Then something would rise from the water, a shadowed figure with outstretched arms, and whisper one word, return. His skin would crawl, his bones would ache, and he'd wake up soaked in sweat, gasping, scratching invisible itches all over his body. The medicine from the native doctor no longer worked. The charm buried under his bed now gave off a foul stench. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. The people in the compound avoided him. Even the birds stopped landing on his windowsill. Then came the night that broke him. It started with a pounding at his door. Not the sound of fists, but of unseen forces shaking his very walls. He stumbled out of bed, heart racing, and opened the door. Nothing, only silence and wind. But when he turned back into his room, he froze. The girls were there. Not physically, but in visions. Their childhood laughter echoed through the walls. Their little feet patted against the floor. The sound of them running to him as children, calling him Uncle Dom, rang in his ears. But now it felt like torment, like mockery. He fell to his knees and screamed, "I didn't mean to hurt you." That was when his neighbors rushed in. "Uncle Dominic, what is it? Who are you shouting at?" a woman asked. He turned to them, his eyes sunken, lips dry. "I cursed them. I cursed my own blood." They exchanged glances. "What are you saying?" He dropped to the floor and began to weep like a child. "I went to a witch doctor. I couldn't stand their joy, their success. After they took back that house, I swore they would never be happy again. I paid money. I used their father's clothes. I gave their names. I watched as they suffered from afar. But it has turned against me. I see them in my dreams. I can't eat. I can't sleep." The room went still. "Wait," one man stepped forward. "You mean the 3 girls you threw out after their father died? The ones now doing well in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt?" Uncle Dominic nodded. "Yes, I did it. I've become what I never thought I'd be, an enemy to my own bloodline." By the next morning, the entire village had heard. The elders gathered under the Iroko tree. Some of them had known Dominic's late brother, the girl's father. Many were shocked. Others were not surprised. "This is why we say, the heart of bitterness breeds madness," Chief Namdi muttered. When Uncle Dominic was summoned before the village, he looked like a shadow of his former self. His white singlet hung loose, his eyes were red from tears, and his feet shook with every step. He confessed everything. From the jealousy he felt after the girls rose to success, to the shrine he visited in secret, to the cursed powder he paid to have scattered at Chisom's shop, and the charm buried behind Nosi's concert hall. He cried as he spoke. "I am a disgrace," he sobbed. "I deserve no forgiveness." The elders did not speak for a long time. Then the oldest among them stood and addressed the crowd. A man who turns his back on his own blood is not fit to sit among us. Uncle Dominic, you are hereby excommunicated from this community. You are to leave the village before sunset. You will not return forever. Let the spirits you invited go with you. We cleanse our hands from your evil." There was no debate. Dominic tried to beg, but the villagers turned their backs on him, one by one. Even the smallest child looked away. By noon, he was seen packing what little he owned into a wheelbarrow and pushing it toward the road that led to the hills. He disappeared that same day. As for Ada, Chisom, and Nosy, peace returned like morning light. The curse lifted. Ada's voice was strong again. She returned to her hospital in Abuja. Chisom received donations and support from local designers to rebuild her fashion studio. Nosy sang again, and this time her voice carried more power than ever before. One Sunday afternoon, they all returned to Nuska. This time, not as helpless girls, but as women of grace and glory. The villagers welcomed them with open arms. The drums beat. Aunt Ifeoma cried as she held them. "You didn't just survive," she said, smiling. "You conquered." They had come full circle. And though the pain had left scars, their hearts were stronger, their spirits wiser. What was stolen had been returned. What was cursed had been reversed. But most of all, what was meant to destroy them had only made them unbreakable. And as for Uncle Dominic, I'll tell you how he died in the final part of this series. Stay tuned. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Angel Chukwu Stories. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in the girl's shoes? Parts 1 to 3 are linked below and in the description. Watch them now.